All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle one of the biggest paradoxes out there, the absolutely mind-boggling efficiency of the human brain. There's a new model out that offers a really fascinating answer to how it all works, so let's crack it open. Okay, so just look at these numbers. It's kind of wild. On one side, you've got a top-of-the-line supercomputer, a true feat of engineering, right? It's burning through something like 30 megawatts of power. That's enough to power a whole small town. And then you've got your brain. It's doing all this incredible stuff, thinking, creating, being conscious, on just 20 watts. 20! That's basically a dim light bulb.
So that's the big mystery, isn't it? How in the world does our brain do so much with so little energy? You know, our best AI can crush us at certain tasks, for sure, but the energy cost is just colossal. So what's the brain's secret sauce? Well, some recent research from Jingxuan Ma and Wanlin Guo puts forward a really compelling answer. So their work points to this fundamental building block. They call it the neural sphere. And you can think of this as the first big clue to solving that whole energy mystery.
Okay, so what is a neural sphere, or NS? Well, according to this model, it's the brain's basic unit for processing information. The main idea here is that neurons aren't just, scattered around randomly. Nope, they actually cluster together into a sphere. And that spherical shape, that's the whole key. It turns out it's the absolute most energy-efficient way to pack them all in. But you might be wondering, how did they even figure out it was a sphere? Well, it was a pretty cool process. First, they basically built digital versions of neurons. Then, they told a computer to arrange all these digital neurons in a way that would make the wiring between them, the connections, as short as physically possible. And what popped out? A sphere. The math was clear. This suggests it's not just some random blob of cells up there. It's a design that's been fundamentally optimized for efficiency. Okay, so we've got this structure, this sphere. But how does a simple shape like that actually do anything? How does it process information? This is where things get really, really interesting. Right, so the crucial thing to understand is that this sphere isn't a one-trick pony, not at all. Its job is super dynamic. And the one thing that changes what it does, the key variable, is just how densely the neurons inside are connected to each other. That's it. It all comes down to connection probability. And this table here really breaks it down. Look, if you connect all the neurons, 100%, it fires at this super high frequency, something they think is perfect for lightning-fast reflexes. But dial it back to about 50% connectivity, and suddenly the firing becomes random, almost chaotic. This, they theorize, is the mode for actual thinking and processing complex information. And then there's this really cool sweet spot, somewhere between 40 and 70%. Here, you get these super long, stable, repeating patterns, which they believe is the secret to learning and memory.
So, how does a sphere actually store something like a memory? Well, the paper pulls a really cool idea from chaos theory. Here's the analogy. Imagine the sphere's electrical activity is like a marble rolling around on a big, bumpy surface with lots of little grooves in it. A memory gets stored when that marble falls into one of those grooves and just settles there in a stable, repeating pattern. In the fancy terms of the theory, that groove is called an attractor. And the idea is that the sphere can have tons of these attractors, each one holding a different piece of information.
All right, so that's a single neural sphere. Pretty cool. But now let's zoom out. How do you get from these little building blocks to a whole, complex brain? Well, the researchers laid out a whole blueprint for this. They call it the High-Performance Neuromorphic Computing Architecture, or HNCA for short, and it's built using just two specialized kinds of these neural spheres. So what are these two types? You've got your processing NS and your memory NS. The processing one, that's the chaotic random one. It's perfect for grabbing new information from the world and trying to make sense of it in real time. The memory one, on the other hand, is stable and predictable. Its whole job is to lock that information down into those attractor patterns we were just talking about. So it's pretty simple, really, one for thinking and one for remembering. And here's where the model gets, I think, really beautiful. These spheres aren't just arranged side by side like bricks. No, they're built into these multi-layer fractal structures. What does that mean? It means a big sphere is actually made up of lots of smaller spheres. And those smaller spheres are made of even smaller ones. It's like Russian nesting dolls. This kind of fractal design is genius because it lets the brain build up incredible complexity from a very simple, repeating, and super energy-efficient starting point. Okay, so let's get to the payoff. What are the big implications of an architecture like this? If this model is even close to being right, what is our brain actually capable of? The numbers they came up with are, well, they're absolutely staggering.
Let's talk about storage capacity first. Based on their HNCA model, the researchers estimate the brain could hold around 7.48 times exabytes of data. Now, to put that into perspective, a lot of previous estimates were way lower, around 1 petabyte. An exabyte is 1,000 petabytes, so this new model suggests our brain's capacity could be over 7,000 times larger than we thought. That is just a truly unimaginable amount of information.
Okay, what about raw computing power? The model calculates that the brain is operating at up to 6.24 exaflops. That number puts it right up there with the most powerful supercomputers on the planet, and in some ways, even beyond them. And I just have to say it again, it's doing all of this on the power of a dim light bulb. It's just incredible. But honestly, this next part might be the most mind-blowing claim of all. You see, physics tells us there's a hard limit, a theoretical minimum amount of energy needed to do any kind of computation. It's called the Landauer limit. According to this model, the brain's absolute physical limit is about 2.37 watts, and its actual power usage for thinking, they estimate it's only about 3 watts. That means our brain could be operating at nearly 79% efficiency. That is almost physically perfect. For comparison, a modern computer chip is literally billions of times less efficient. It's not even in the same league.
So, beyond all these insane numbers, what are the big ideas we can actually take away from this model? Let's try to boil it all down into a kind of neuromorphic toolkit.
Okay, first big takeaway. Real efficiency comes from smart organization, not just raw power. Second, you can get incredibly complex behavior from very simple repeating rules, just like the fractal spheres. Third, it's all about association. Connecting different ideas and inputs is how you build a richer picture of the world. And finally, and this is a big one, efficiency is physical. The brain's power comes from a design that minimizes physical distance and energy use at the most basic level.
All right, time for a quick self-check to make sure this is sinking in. Based on what we've talked about, what's the key difference between a processing sphere and a memory sphere? Yep, it's all about their electrical activity. One is random and chaotic for processing, and the other is stable and predictable for memory. It's a simple difference, but it has huge consequences for how the whole system works.
So, where does all this leave us? What's the final thought here?
You know, this model isn't just a cool theory about how our own brains work. It's so much more than that. It's a potential roadmap, a blueprint for building the next generation of AI. It shows us a path to creating artificial general intelligence that isn't just powerful, but is also sustainable, something radically more efficient than the power-hungry systems we're building today. And that brings us to the final, really big question. If we actually do it, if we build a machine on these same principles, fractal, ultra-efficient, neuromorphic, will it just be a machine that computes really well? Or will we have created something that actually thinks? It's a huge question, and one that might just define the future of technology. What do you think? Let us know.